Hey guys, we're back. This time we're going to be taking a look at Horizons of Spirit Island. This is a budget, kind of like a starter set version of Spirit Island. It's been simplified a little, the components have been reduced a little to keep the cost down. This is available as a Target exclusive. I think it's for 2 years, I'm not positive on that. But then you'll start seeing it pop up other places after that. And it just gives you a cheaper alternative to get into the Spirit Island franchise with some more of the low complexity spirits and things that are a little bit easier to understand straight from the beginning. With that said, though, we're going to get in here and take a look at everything that's in here, and I'll even compare how some of the components compare to the original game because they have changed a few things. So first thing right on top here, we have our rulebook, and they use that nice glossy, can't really see it on there, but yeah, it's a super high gloss. I think the original game had that too, but we have a table of contents and an introduction here, nothing important on there. The history of what's actually going on. We have a nice component list, and you can see here some of these are different from what they are in the base game, and we'll get to that. Flip through this real quick here. One of the major differences is now there's a board instead of the little tiles where you build your custom board. You have a 2-player on one side, 3-player on the other. And then the basic rules here. I don't think anything has changed in the rules. So there's that. It actually doesn't have a couple of the more advanced rules from Branch and Claw and Jagged Earth. So you don't have to worry about those things. But yeah, so the how to play is pretty much exactly the same. I think they changed some of the symbols to match is all. Then there's a section on game concepts. I think that was actually in the main rulebook too. There's a section for the spirit boards, going through them. The Invaders over here. Like I said, I'm doing a real quick look through of this. If you want a more in-depth look at the book and the rules and things, check out my main Spirit Island video. I'll link it at the end of this. But for this one, we're just going to go through pretty much what's changed. And keep that a little simpler and make things quicker. We're going to go through most of this pretty quick. But then there's an FAQ section here. Some tips and tricks. Basic strategies. And then a little bit of lore in the back. Always cool to read through. And then a glossary of terms. One of the new things that are changed in this is they tried to standardize a lot of mechanics and things by using keywords and terms. All of the cards in here have been updated with those keywords. So there's that. That's our rule book. We have a quick start guide here. Now, unfortunately, I can't tell you how good this is because I already knew how to play the game going into this. So somebody who out there has learned from this maybe can comment and then talk about how, if it helped or if it hindered them learning to play the game by using this. But it goes through a quick setup and basic few turns of a game just to explain how things work. I've heard some people make a few comments about it. Some of them liked it, some didn't. So, like I said, I can't really speak on that, but it's nice to have that. I'm not sure, I didn't look if this has, maybe in here. A lot of them now have been having a I guess there isn't one in this one. Some games have a little QR code with a link on a how to play video, which is a great idea. Doesn't look like this one does, but next thing we have here are our player boards. And I believe you get 5 spirits in this. So in the base normal game, I think you get 8. Here you get 5. But we have the Devouring Teeth that Lurk Underfoot. And on the back side of these, they have their lore history behind them, how you set them up, how they play. They're missing the complexity meter. I think all of these are considered low complexity, so they didn't even put them on there. But that's something to keep in mind. Next we have Eyes That Watch from the Trees. Love the artwork for this one. And again, same stuff on the back, no complexity rating. But you can see here you get a feel for what they're good at. Then we have Fathomless Mud of the Swamp. Pretty well rounded there. Rising Heat of Stone and Sand. And you can see here he's kind of specializes here. He's a little weak in some of the others. And finally we have Sunbright Whirlwind. And again, another one that specializes. Has some weaknesses too, though. So just a quick overview on these. These are going to be covered with your presence tokens. You're going to be using these things that say add a presence token to the board to remove these to unlock the different things underneath. On your turn, you're going to pick one of these up here. So in this case, you have this section here, which gives you reclaim your cards, get you back your cards you played. You gain a new power card, either a minor power or a major power. A major power, you have to discard something. And then you gain an extra energy. This one, you're going to be adding one of these presence tokens to the board and gaining 4 energy. And this one, you're going to gain a power card, again, one of those minor or majors, and then add a presence within range 4 of another presence. So that's the basics of those. Every spirit has a little special ability down here that applies to specifically that spirit. And then each one has an innate power here that you can trigger as long as you meet the requirements for what you're trying to do. That's the real basics. Like I said, if you want to get into that more depth and how to play and stuff, definitely check out the Spirit Island video. I'll link at the end of this. Next we have our board. And this is probably the biggest departure from the base game, because the base game has island boards. So in the base game you had these islands, and they had this more simplified version on one side so you can very easily see the different types of terrain. On the flip side, they had a more realistic looking island. I guess I had it right side up the first time. And you have your different terrain types and the stats of what goes where. It's also a little bit more difficult on that side, I think. But they replaced those in this with this game board. And it kind of, see like this, you can almost see the line. I think that might actually be one. But they're a little odder shape. Actually, I think on this side, they might actually be the right shapes. On this side over here, they're definitely considerably different shapes. But you have your line here, so you have your 2 islands instead of the island tiles here. So that's, like I said, the major change. They've also added, there's a section up here for your fear, a section down here for the blight. It's kind of cut off. Slide it up a little so you can see. Sections for your decks. In the original game, those were separate boards. You had the base board here, which was considerably smaller, as you can see. And this had your fear cards went here. Your terror level was up here. The invader exploration cards went down here, and then your generated fear was in the middle there. So they've kind of taken that, and then there was another deck for the advancements and all that stuff. I don't think you don't use the elements in this, and I don't know if there's any events in this. So this board is completely not used at all in this version. It does not come with a adversary or scenario cards, and you replace this board with this one. This also replaces these boards and the map tiles, so it kind of evens out in the end. It does offer some new shapes. It only has a 2 and a 3 player version though, so keep that in mind if you're using that. Next, we can go through some of the tokens real quick. I'm not even going to get these out, but the fear tokens here are exactly the same as they were in the base game. We have the energy tokens. They are very similar to the ones from the base game. They are slightly different. The ones from the base game had this like textured look to them, and now they're just a flat color. So they will stand out if you mix them together. But function-wise and everything, nothing has changed there. Just a slightly different texture. Then we start getting into the more different components. These tokens here are the Blight tokens. Now they actually match the Blight symbols that appear on the map. Which, I don't know how well you can see it there, but there's one right there. They match the ones that are on the map. They match the ones that are on the cards. So these actually might be easier for people to understand because it's the exact same symbol, the exact same representation in the game. Where in the original game, the Blight was these plastic tokens, which they do look cool, but they kind of seem out of place, and these are much easier to see. So that's an interesting trade-off. Next thing we have are the Dahan, and these villages have the normal village on one side, and then like the, I think it's on fire or whatever, exploding in the back. That's to represent when they're normal and when they're damaged. In the original game, those were represented by these little wooden huts, kind of look like mushrooms, and you put them normal side up when they were normal, or when they were all good, and you flipped it upside down when they had taken damage. So they replaced that with those tokens. Oddly enough, I like the wood nature of these. They kind of represent the natural inhabitants in their little wood huts. I like that aspect. Then again, these are still cardboard, which is still kind of natural. But these, again, have the exact symbol that is on all of the cards and referenced on the board. So it makes it a little easier to understand. Then we get to our invaders, and our invader tokens have the little guys represented on them. There's also a couple ones for 3, which those I actually like. But again, cardboard tokens in this. In the original game, we had these little plastic figures. I thought they were kind of out of place, though. They seemed strange, like they were for another game and got reused. But I do like the fact that the invaders were plastic, man-made, not natural, where the Dahan were wood, a natural organic piece that kind of fit in with the theme of the game for me. Next we have our villages, and the villages are the same as the other tokens. They've got the village on one side and then the exploding village on the other. So then you put them down, you flip them over when they represent that they've taken damage. In the original games, you got these little plastic villages. Again, all the invader tokens were represented by plastic. And they sat like this when they were healthy. You flipped them on their side when they were damaged. And then you removed them when they were destroyed. And the last ones are the cities. And the cities function pretty similar. The only thing that these are a little more clunky, I think, is that these have the city on one side when they're normal. When they're damaged, you flip them over and use the damage side. And then when they take another point of damage, you would put one of your power markers on there to represent that it had taken 1 damage from being flipped over, 1 damage from this, and on the 3rd damage they were removed. That one seems a little bit clunkier to me in this, but I'll have to play a couple times that way just to see. But in the original games, you had these plastic houses, and you can see there's 3 buildings on there. When they're standing up like this, they have their 3 hit points. You tip them on their side. Now there's 2, representing they have 2 hit points left. Flip them over this side. Now there's 1 for 1 hit point left, and then they were removed. That actually seemed kind of confusing to me when I first started playing, but now that I've done it that way for so long, this way seems more confusing to me. So that one will be up to you. Then we have our bag of player tokens. They've introduced 3 new colors in here, although the colors are very similar to some of the others we've had. So first off, we have these, which are like a super bright. And you can see, there's the one from the original game. Man, they look close to me. But I have issues with colors, so it might just be me. They look a little less so when you compare them to the Yeah, that's the tokens that go with those. See, the tokens were always darker to begin with. And then they're not nearly the same shade of orange as the base, but they're so light they kind of blend in with the yellow to me. So those are one of your new player colors. Next we have this cyan color, and these definitely stand out from all the others. Though I do say the cardboard components never match the wood components. None of them do. So that one's kind of off just a little bit. Not that bad, but that's your second player color. And your third is this really dark, I don't know, is that a maroon? Purple? They kind of look purple, but these kind of look more reddish. But anyway, they're definitely different than the reds from Branching Claw, I think it was. But I've mixed all mine together, so it's really hard to tell what goes to what anymore. But those are your three new player colors. Then we have our exploration deck. And yes, I sleeved all these. I always sleeve cards if I can. And these ones are exactly the same as the deck from the base game. So you have yourself a spare, or you can keep these in the Horizon box, which is what I'm going to do. I'll get to that at the end. But you have your level 1s, level 2s, and level 3s of those. And these affect where the spirit or where the invaders come out on the board, how they advance, how they spread, how they attack. But those are exactly the same as they are in the base game. Now I went through all of these, the fear cards here. We'll get to those in a minute. But they are exactly the same cards that were in the base game. However, they have changed up some of the terminology and wording. So in this case, we have both here. This is your base game, Belief Takes Roots. And here you have Defend 2 in all lands with a presence. Here we have the one from this set. It's lands with a presence have Defend 2. It's the exact same thing, worded slightly differently. They do have the set symbol down here in the corner, so you know which one came from which deck. But there's a lot of those. Like I said, all these are ones from the base game. These are the ones from this set. They're exactly the same cards. Background is a slightly different color, it looks like. I don't know if they're different in the back. Yeah, the colors are very similar. There might be a slight difference on the back, but you don't need to mix them. Like I said, though, they're the exact same cards. And you're literally just getting updated wordings on these. And I may put the updated wordings in my main game and keep the older ones to put back in this box. The same thing goes true for the minor and major powers. There's quite the stack here. Again, these all have penny sleeves on them. You can see they don't fit, but that's because I just put throwaway sleeves on things because I probably won't use these. But again, all of the exact same cards are here with slightly different wordings. And as we can see here, entrancing apparitions from the base game. Defend 2 if no invaders are present, gather up to 2. And the new one from this set, Defend 2 if no invaders are present, gather up to 2. So they're literally the exact same terminology. Again, there are a couple in there that have different wordings on them. So I'm going to go through and find the ones with the updated keywords and things and probably put them in my main set. But just so you know, you get the exact same deck in there. So it's good to know because now you're not having to worry, struggle, flipping cards back and forth, trying to figure out what came from what set. You literally do not have to mix these. And you're not missing out on anything as far as the powers go because they're the exact same cards in total. And again, the same holds true for our major powers deck. Let's see if there's a difference on this one. This one has a slight change here as well. Wrapping Wings of Sunlight. So on here you have move up to 5 Dahan from a target land to any land. Defend 5 in that land. And in this set, that same card reads, move up to 5 Dahan to any land, including back to the target land if you moved at least 1 Defend 5 in that land. So that one actually has a slight functional difference. I think this was written in the FAQ that you still had to move at least 1 to do it, where this one specifies right on the card that you need to move at least 1. So you can see where they've cleared things up. They've tried to add in a lot of the errata FAQ stuff into the cards, which I'm okay with. Like I said, I am likely going to take the updated versions of the cards from this, combine them in my base game, and take the older ones from the base game and put them in this box, because the difference isn't that big of a deal, and a lot of those keywords don't matter as much in this version of the game as they do in the main one when you're playing with all the expansions and all the extra add-ons. Another small component difference are the divider cards that go in your fear deck. So you have your terror level cards here, and it changes up on the victory condition. In this, they're normal card stock. They get stuck right in with your cards. In the base game, they were thick tiles, and I gotta say I like these better because you could see when you were getting to the next level, because these little tabs on the side stick out farther than the cards. So when you had your cards on here, these little tabs stuck out on the side, and you could see easier when they were coming. These just get shuffled into the fear deck, and well, they're spaced out specifically, but they're the exact same size as the fear cards, so you don't see them coming. It's not as easy. That's kind of a nitpicky thing, though. Honestly, you can get yourself a little tab to put on the side like you put on folders, and they'd have the little tabs sticking off the side that would be functionally the same. But yeah, you can always put them in the deck sideways too. You put them in this way in the deck and they'll stick out and you'll be able to see them coming. Maybe that was the intention, because they do have the numbers on the side. But yeah, that's probably the last component change. And granted, I've gone through almost everything at this point, so zoom out just a hair to get everything on screen there. And the final thing are the actual cards here for the new spirits. They do have a power progression card for each of these. The base set had those 2 for those spirits that came with them. And for your first couple games, when you're trying to learn the basics, if you don't want to deal with the whole drafting random cards out of the major and minor power decks, depending on the spirits you're playing, they have a list of major and minor powers that you basically set these aside when you're playing that spirit. And as you use the gain a power card, you literally just take the next card on the list from your little pile. So you're getting a set specific type of cards, and it makes the game much easier to learn because you lose some of the randomness of getting, maybe you have a defensive heavy guy and you pull a defensive power out of there. Well, it doesn't do you that good because you already have a bunch of defensive cards. Or same thing vice versa with an offensive guy. You really want to change things up, mix and match, and play off your strengths, but you also need some cards for other situations. And these kind of mix it up a little bit and remain themed, but also give you the ability to play without basically doing the draw mechanic there. So it makes the game a little bit simpler. Next up, we have the Devouring Teeth Underfoot, and the 4 cards they start with. This little Gift of Furious Might. Target spirit may deal 3 damage, plus 3 damage this turn with one of its damage dealing powers. So adds plus 3 to the total, even if that power damages multiple invaders or each invader. That one's kind of cool. Can definitely be pretty powerful. Fast speed and targets another spirit. So very good support ability there. Then we have Ferocious Rampage. Causes 1 fear, 3 damage to an invader or a village, plus 1 damage to an invader or village from your territory aggression special rule, which is right here on the player board. So that one's pretty good. Slow speed, that's a big thing on that. Next we have Marked Territory with Scars and Teeth. Defend 9, which is just crazy. 2 fear if invaders are present, and you can push 2 to Han. Finally, we have Herd Towards the Lurking Maw. 1 fear, gather up to 1 invader or village. Kind of a defensive / support guy there. Next, we have the Eyes Watch from the Trees. And they have Whispered Guidance Through the Night. Gather up to 3 to Han. If invaders into Han are present, cause a fear. And that one can be done in range 1 of a jungle where you have presence. We have Mysterious Abductions, which is just 1 fear, 1 damage. Pretty basic. Eerie Noises and Moving Trees. Cause 2 fear, push 2 invaders or villages. And then we have Boon of the Watchful Guarding. In one of the target spirit's lands, you defend 4, so you can actually cast this on other players. And then target spirit may spend 1 energy to instead defend 8, which is really good. And this power defends a single land, lets you use your special rule to Han Trust the Watchers, which is their ability here. So nice one there. Again, another defensive. Next we have Fathomless Mud of the Swamp. We got Open Shifting Waterways. Gather up to 2 Dahan. If Dahan and invaders are present, deal 1 fear, 1 damage. Interactable Thickets and Thorns. 1 fear, defend 5. A lot of defense cards in this set. Foul Vapors and Fetid Muck. 1 fear, push up to 2 invaders. And Exaltation of Tangled Growth. Target spirit may pay 1 energy to gain a power card. You may pay 2 energy to gain a power card. That's pretty cool. A nice, again, more of a support type thing there. Helping others gain new powers is good, though. Next we have the Rising Heat of Stone and Sand. We have Sweltering Exhaustion. 1 fear, skip a Ravage or build action. Skip up to 1. That's actually pretty good. We have Stinging Sandstorm. Gather up to 1 of your presence. 1 fear and 1 damage. This power, if this power makes a, I can't remember what they call that, a shrine or whatever, when you have 2 together. Your special rule applies immediately, draining invaders there. That's pretty cool. They have a special rule on here which causes damage on anywhere where you have a... man, I can't remember the term for that. It's a good thing they have that glossary thing in there. Next we have Gift of Searing Heat. Target spirit gains 2 energy, or target spirit may pay 1 energy to deal 1 damage in one of their lands. So that's a nice versatility card. Getting someone else energy, they might not have enough to do an ability or something they want. You get them a little extra, or you can deal extra damage with it. And you can use it on yourself too. Then we have Call on Herders for aid. Gather up to 2 Dahan. For each Dahan present, push up to 1 invader, village, or Dahan. So that could be interesting for basically crowd control, moving things around, getting them where you need them. And then finally we have Sunbright Whirlwind. We have Tempest of the Leaves and Branches. Choose up to 5 different invaders in target land. Damage 1 to each of them. That one's kind of good. We have Gift of the Sunlit Air. Target spirit gains +1 range with all their powers. If the target another spirit, they also gain an energy. That's pretty cool. And Gift of Windsped Steps. Target spirit may make 1 power which says push or gather into a fast one or quick for that turn, which is nice. Fast speed instead of slow. If you target another spirit, they gain an energy. So a lot of utility there. And then we have Scatter to the Winds. Choose up to 5 invaders, villages, or Dahan. Push them in as many different directions as or different lands as possible. That one's kind of neat too. So you can clear out a section basically and spread them all out. You could push the invaders to a specific one. You can push the Dahan to a separate one to save them, or you can mix and match. As many as possible means so once you got one in each, like if you're in a corner of the map or something, you can push a second one into there. So it gives you some options on how you can use this to set things up for other abilities. I kind of like that. And that is a look at everything that comes in the Horizons of Spirit Islands. Again, the gameplay is exactly the same as the base game, and as I kept saying, I will put a link to the base game video I made, and that kind of explains the rules and how to play. I'm not going to go over that here, but I will say that these are much less complex spirits than the ones in some of the other games, on par with some of the other low complexity ones, but all of them are that way, which is nice. You have the exact same abilities to get in major and minor powers, just worded slightly different, so that's nice. Same with the fear cards, same cards, worded slightly different on a few of them. The components are definitely a step down in quality, but that was intentional. It also keeps the price down. This costs about half, if not less, than what the main game cost. So that's reflected in the fact that you're getting cardboard tokens instead of the plastic and wood. Not necessarily a bad thing. Honestly, my biggest complaint about these is the size. They're considerably bigger. They fill up the tiles on the board quite quickly. You end up having to stack tiles up. Also, the little fiddly nature of the cities when you're flipped over and then you put the counter on them, as opposed to just tipping the building over. So, minor things, but it's worth noting on those. I kind of like the new corrupted tokens better than the little plastic ones. The little plastic ones were cool, but they're hard to see sometimes on the board, and they're very small. These are much larger. The symbol is the exact same as what's on the cards and stuff, and I think that makes them a lot easier to understand. And they're bigger, so they're easier to see. I think some people have made like 3D ones very similar to these that actually stand up on a base to make them even easier to see, because that is a main mechanic of the game. You need to keep track of those. So it definitely, the easier they are to see, the better. The one thing that I kind of skipped over, and I probably shouldn't have, was talking about the components. The new player boards are a much thinner, they're cardstock basically. Same thing the cards are made out of. It's not bad, they're nice thickness, and I honestly, they have a little in texture too. I don't know if I can get that on camera, but honestly, these grew on me. I like these better than the original. The original game has these much thicker boards, which I'll admit they do feel more premium. They're thick cardboard there, but the problem with them is these 5 all combined. I don't know if I'll be able to get this on camera, but literally these are cardstock thickness, and you can see there these 5 player boards combined take up less space than one of these. And when you have just one game, it's not that big of a deal. When you have 2 games, it's not that big of a deal. Once you start getting all of the different games and all of the different expansions going into this pile takes up a lot of space. And when you're storing these in your box, this literally takes up more than half of the box. And having these smaller ones, thinner ones, is actually better because you don't do that much with them. I mean, you flip them over to read them, but 90% of the game they're sitting here and you play on top of them. You're putting your tokens on here and moving them. That's it. You're referencing the stats on them. It's not like you're shuffling them or anything like that. So that aspect of them, I kind of like the new ones better. And they did release a set where you could buy foil versions of all the existing spirits, and they come in these thinner things, but I don't like foil. I would love to get thinner cards like that for all these spirits to make them match, and that way it would take up a lot less space in storage, and I think you'd be able to fit everything into the box. I'm still going to try, but it's going to be a tight fit to get all this stuff in the box. Thankfully, like I said, you don't need the major powers, you don't need the minor powers, you don't need the player cards, you don't need the exploration cards, so all these can stay out. These tokens are all replaced, so I don't need any of that. So really, it's the 5 boards, the 5 decks that associate with those spirits, and a couple aspect cards here. Or these aren't aspect; these are the progression cards. Aspects are a different thing. I think this is a great package for anybody who's just getting into Horizons. Or yeah, this is a great package for anybody who's just getting into Spirit Island. It definitely gives you a nice feel for the game. It's 2 to 3 players on there, so you can mix and match and try different combinations of spirits. And you're going to get a decent amount of plays out of just this. Then if it's something you definitely, you find yourself liking or wanting more of, you look into the base game Spirit Island, the Branch and Claw expansion, and I would say those two first, maybe Feather and Flame. That's just 4 new spirits that were originally promo packs. But get those first. Get yourself, a nice variety of things. That'll give you the multiple boards. You can play more players. You can mix and match things. After that, then you can start looking into Jagged Earth. Jagged Earth has much more complicated spirits. There are some. I don't know if there's any low complexity in that. I think they're all mid and up, but so it's definitely best kept for after you've played for a while and you've got a good grasp on things and you want something more. It also works well if you have people who have played the game a lot playing with new people. Give the new people these easier to understand spirits, and the veteran players can take those more complicated ones. In the end, though, I really like the game. I think it's a great introduction to Spirit Island, and even if it's the only Spirit Island title you buy, it can definitely get you up and playing. That's going to wrap it up for our look at Horizons of Spirit Island from Greater Than Games. Hope it helps you decide if it's something worth picking up for yourself. Like I said, I definitely recommend it as an introduction to Spirit Island if you haven't played before. If you have played before, keep in mind that the only thing you're really getting out of this are the 5 new spirits and their abilities, which still, anybody who plays and likes the game, 5 new spirits are 5 new spirits. You're not getting any major or minor powers or any of this stuff. It's all going to be duplicates of what you already have, those slightly worded, reworded. So keep that in mind if you know that going into it. I don't think $30, I think that's what it is bad for that, for 5 new spirits. But it's totally up to you. Hopefully this helps you decide. As always, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.